This weekend we see the 33rd edition of Britain's Strongest Man. We've got former champions, we've got new names, and we've got all the information you guys need to know. Okay, until it's Britain's Strongest Man this weekend in Sheffield. We'll get into all the details of where people can watch, etc. later on. But there's been a lot of jostling of athletes in...
Jostling. Great word, Leslie.
Obviously, unfortunately, some athletes having to pull out injured. No Stoltmans in this. But this is a new look Britain's Strongest Man with a number of new faces. And I think that's great.
Yeah, we always like to see new talent coming through and deserving athletes given opportunities as well. And there are some very promising athletes in this lineup.
We have some fantastic up-and-coming athletes in the UK right now, and I'm very excited to see how they do. So shall we just jump into the athletes first?
Let's do it.
So we will kick things off with Adam Bishop, former Britain's Strongest Man, and he had the longest ever stint for 1 year.
Yeah, he did.
But Adam could well become a 2 times Britain's Strongest Man winner.
Next up, we have Gav Bilton, former 2-time UK Strongest Man.
We've got another former Britain's Strongest Man, someone that's in very good shape right now, the one and only Graham Hicks.
We have the current UK Strongest Man, who's on the back of probably his best year in Strongman ever, Paul Smith.
The legend, the one and only Mark Felix, still vying to become Britain's Strongest Man.
Next up, this will be his 3rd appearance at the competition. It's former England Strongest Man, Shane Flowers.
Someone I'm extremely excited to watch this weekend. One of my own clients, he's worked so hard to get to this competition, Ryan Bennett.
Next up is Kane Francis, who last year had a brilliant run at the Strongman Champions League. So I'm really excited to see what Kane can do in this venue with this lineup.
Winner of Scotland's Strongest Man last year, Lewis Jack.
And we have runner-up at Scotland's Strongest Man, Zaki Maluzzi.
We've got former Scotland's Strongest Man, Andy Black.
And finally, we have Cillian Groom from Ireland, who came 4th at last year's UK Strongest Man.
So, exciting new lineup there. Really sad that we've lost Terry Hollands, we've lost Luke Richardson. I was so excited to see Luke back. Unfortunately, tearing his lat in a deload session of all things.
I know, it's cruel, isn't it? And this is an injury you've suffered with yourself in 2000.
Yeah, hopefully we'll see him back very, very soon. But this is the lineup that we've got. And what's really interesting is the amount of new faces. I think that's great. It's so easy. If we look in the past, sometimes the promoters would just go for the easy picks.
Yeah.
They've clearly looked at what people have done last year. If you look at Kane Francis, had an amazing year in the Champions League. Ryan Bennett won England's Strongest Man. He was competitive at the Arnold's UKs. Yeah. He also was very good at the Strongman Champions League. So good to see these different faces getting a chance. And, I mean, how impressive is Scotland right now? We've got 3 Scottish athletes competing without the Stoltmans there.
Yeah.
So the standard in Scotland, in England, in Wales, all these kind of home countries improving all the time.
So let's remind ourselves of the events that these guys are going to have to complete.
Event number 1 is going to be the deadlift ladder. This is an exciting one. I think it suits guys that are willing to be brave and go without straps. If you can get through a few of these bars as quickly as possible, it puts you in a good position. Yeah. And this could suit someone that you wouldn't normally talk of as a good deadlifter, Paul Smith. Yeah. There's an exceptional grip, and we saw at the Strongman Champions League, actually,
very well.
This type of deadlift suits him.
It does, although it's going to be heavier in this setup, so it'll be interesting to see how his performance here compares to that. But also Mark Felix. Come on now, Mark Felix. I expect this to be good for him. Mark is always known as a great deadlifter, but everyone else is getting even better, whereas Mark has kind of stayed where he is, or maybe gone back a little bit. But I think this could be a great event for Mark. I look forward to seeing him on this one.
I agree. Also looking forward to seeing Adam Bishop and Graham Hicks on this one. Both powerhouses when it comes to deadlifting, but it could be a matter of who gets through quicker. So could be an interesting one to look out for. Event number 2 is the car walk. Now, again, awesome event. I love the car walk, as you know. But we've got some very good athletes on the car walk, particularly Bish, Hicksy, and Mark Felix is very good at car walk.
Yeah, it's
I was looking at these events before we started filming.
Mark.
I was like, the old man could do good here.
The old man. Bless him. The last couple of times we've seen Mark, he's been absolutely brilliant. I'm sure everyone would love him to have a great show in here.
Unfortunately, the next event could be his downfall. It's the Viking press. We know that pressing isn't Mark's strongest point. I can't see anyone getting close to Graham Hicks on the Viking press.
No. Is it going to be the outwards one with the logs?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got some great pressers, but Hicksy is really in a league of his own. He's up there with
the very best.
Yeah, and I just don't see anyone touching him on this. Viking press we saw with Bish a few years ago in Manchester.
Did very well.
Good overhead for him, but coming back from the tricep tear, has he had enough time to recover and get his pressing back to his best? I know Gav Bilton's looking pretty strong on his overhead, and I'm looking forward to seeing Ryan Bennett on this one. He went up to train with the kit and he looked very, very good. Event number 4 is the loading race, kind of a traditional event that they've had at Britain's Strongest Man a number of times, loading various different implements into the skip. A real hard one to predict.
It's always hard. And like when I think about the fastest athletes, Bish is quick.
Bish is quick. I think Shane Flowers could be very good on this type of event.
Shane is very fast. Yeah, it's hard. It's hard because some of the bigger guys, they might not be the quickest, but they can manhandle the objects better, can't they? And that gives them a bit of an advantage. So hard one to call. I mean, Paul Smith is very fast, but obviously he's smaller than a lot of the other guys. So it's really hard to call.
And finally, not finishing on Atlas Stones, we are finishing with the Power Stairs. Interesting finish to a competition. I quite like it.
Power Stairs have made a strong comeback this last year.
Yes, last year we've seen them a number of times, and we've got a few athletes that could be good at this one. I mean, Gav Bilton looked very solid.
Yeah.
I think Felix can be really good. I think Shane Flowers can be good.
You'd expect Bish to be quite good at it as well.
Bish, Hicksy's been training them really, really hard. You know, these younger guys will have as well. So
painful event for Paul Smith, possibly. We saw that in Glasgow, didn't we? He really dropped a lot of points.
Yeah, as we do, we kind of analyse and look at the events, look at the athletes. For me, I don't think this is the best group of events for Paul Smith.
No.
That's not to say he can't get into the top 5 because he's a supreme athlete. And like I said, I think this deadlift suits him a little bit more.
Yeah.
Car walk in the past, he's solid. He's not incredible at it. I think he can score steady points. Viking press he can be very, very good at. The loading, he is fast. It's just how, being a smaller athlete, do they kind of... we've seen guys like Tom Stoltman just eat up the course in the past. He's got such long strides.
Yeah, of course.
It's so easy for him to manhandle.
It's like a galloping horse.
Paul's very good. He just has to work that little bit harder.
Yeah.
But the Power Stairs has been a weakness. A couple of times we've seen him do this. So he's, he would have been training hard. If he can make the necessary improvements on the Power Stairs, could do very well.
Right, call it then, Lozzie. Who you got?
Well, people are going to think I'm crazy because, like I said, I don't think he can win, but I think Mark Felix can do very well here. I think the deadlift suits him. I think the car walk suits him. Mark is very, very good at car walk.
Yeah, he is.
I've seen him a number of times score big points on that. Viking press is going to cost him big points.
Yeah.
Loading should be solid, and Power Stairs should be a good event for him.
Yeah.
So Mark could cause people a lot of problems. I think the obvious pick in terms of first and second place are the 2 previous Britain's Strongest Man winners, Adam Bishop and Graham Hicks. I think we're going to see a good battle between those two to take the title.
Which order have you got them in?
I'm going to go for Hicksy taking the win. I think Hicksy is going to get his second Britain's Strongest Man title. I've spoken to him a number of times. He's fitter at the moment. He's brought his body weight down a little bit. He's still an absolute beast when it comes to deadlifting and Viking press. But I think that improved fitness, we get to see what Hicksy was like when he won Britain's Strongest Man. You remember when he won, he was rapid on the yoke. He was quick on the loading.
Yeah.
And then he got into the powerlifting, got massive and started slowing down on those events. He's tried to get those type of events back to his best.
And we know Hicksy can be very fast.
And Hicksy can afford to drop, a fair bit of that static strength and still be stronger than everyone else.
Yeah.
He's just one of the freakily strongest men you've ever met. So if he's coming in as a complete package, I think Hicksy's going to be hard to beat.
Agree. So we're having Hicksy in first place, Bish in second place.
You copying me for that one?
I'm not copying you. I agree with you for once.
I think we could see Gav Bilton, Shane Flowers, Mark Felix, or Paul Smith all take that third place. And I think that battle for me is going to be the most interesting all weekend. I think it could be a real exciting one. Obviously, you get that third spot, you qualify yourself for the following World's Strongest Man.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting because, there's guys we're not talking about because we don't know what their strengths are. Kane Francis.
I think there's lots of great athletes here. So you've got Zaki, he's a great deadlifter.
Yeah.
He's got some other strengths. He's got some weaknesses as well. And I think most of these guys are in that boat. Kane Francis is still yet to prove himself on the British scene. He's done very well in a few Champions Leagues. It's a different type of contest in those, but I'm looking forward to seeing how well prepared he is and what he's coming in. I think Ryan Bennett can do really well. I'm expecting Ryan to be somewhere like in the mid-table. That's kind of the goal this year. Get that experience and show that you belong at this type of level.
It's a hard one to call. It's very difficult.
Andy Black didn't have a great year last year, but he's a great deadlifter. He's got that height for things like the power stairs. I think the Viking press will cost him. Pressing is still a weakness. It depends whether, guys like Felix and Andy, who can jostle up higher. If Felix can be Andy on something like the Viking press, that's going to be real good for Mark. Because, like I said, I think he's got some real strengths in there. But for me, I'm going to stick with Hicksy taking first. I'm going to go Bish second, and I'm going to put it on the line and say Mark Felix takes third place.
Really?
I've gone crazy. But
that's interesting. I've got Gav Bilton in third.
I think that's a very, very solid pick.
I think that's a safer pick. Oh, God. No one will be happier than me to see Mark Felix do really well. But
do you know what, though? Mark has great experience.
I know.
And when you've got 4 very good events, Mark could win the deadlift and he could win the car walk.
Yeah.
If he can win those, potentially he could win the power stairs. I don't think he'll win the loading, but I think he can score good points. And if he doesn't come last on the Viking press...
He might not come last on the Viking press.
We've got a lot of newbies in there.
He might not come last.
It's a better overhead for him than some of the other events.
Yeah, definitely.
So I'm going to support my fellow older athlete and say, Mark's old enough to be my dad, to be fair, but the fact that he's almost 57 and still trying to win Britain's Strongest Man, I think he's been on the podium more than anyone.
Probably, with that many appearances. What did you say? It's the 33rd
Britain's Strongest Man. Mark was there for the original. But I'm sticking with Hicksy as my top pick. I think Hicksy...
Yeah.
Bish is coming back from injury. I'm sure he's going to be in good shape, but is he fully recovered? That tricep injury, it does take a bit of time to get back from. And if a few of the newer guys can get between Hicksy and Bish on the Viking press, I think that gives Hicksy a big advantage.
So tickets are still available for this competition to watch live in person. We will include a link in the description below. It is only available to live stream now on officialstrongman.com, so you will need to sign up for that. You are not forced to enroll into a monthly subscription because you can cancel straight away if you want to. And although it says credit card, it does accept debit cards too. I'm like a help desk.
You are. You're doing very good there.
Thank you so much. Let us know what you guys think in terms of the events, the athletes, and who you think is going to be top 5 in this year's Britain's Strongest Man.
Who's going to win? Who is going to become the 33rd winner? Well, it's not the 33rd winner, but
because it's different winners.
The winner of the 33rd Britain's Strongest Man.